Parshas Emor speaks about Sfiras HaOmer, counting the Omer until we get to Shavuos, which is coming up, and we'll get a chance to speak about that as well. Okay, I heard that Rabbi Karabkin divides the class up into two, so maybe we'll try to do that. First, we'll speak about the Parsha, and I apologize, I don't have handouts for you, but we do have some good sources. And then we'll go into the story of Lag BaOmer and some of the lessons for us. Okay, this week's parsha starts with the sanctity of the Kohanim. The Kohanim could not become Tamei Tumas Meis unless it was a close relative of theirs. They couldn't attend a funeral or bury someone unless it was a Meis Mitzvah. There was no one else to take care of them. Why was this? Why couldn't the Kohen be Metame for a Meis? So the pasuk says an interesting thing. This is in the beginning of the parsha. It says a word that usually we translate differently than the way the Ramban explains it here, and that is, find the pasuk it's in pasuk. Pasuk Dalid in the parsha, it says, "Lo yitama bal be'amav lechalos." Does anyone know here usually what a baal means? Beis ayin lamid, an owner. Okay, very often it's translated as an owner. Okay, here it's not referring to an owner, says the Ramban. What it means is that he brings many places. It's related to the word owner, but it's somebody of high esteem, like an officer. And it's saying that the Kohanim are officers, and they have to be in high regard. So to lower themselves, to become in Tameh, defiled, not impure, so that is not kafi according to their level of honor. So really that's what it's about. According to this translation, the Ramban says, "Liyatama nichbad ba'amav." Somebody who is, it's like a nichbad is somebody who is an esteemed person. Lahachel es kivodo. So often in our times we struggle, and in other times people struggle. It could be a Kohen could struggle with this, and a Jew could struggle, a child. Why do we have more restrictions, right? Why everyone else could eat this and this, or they could do this and this, they could go to this place whenever they want, and where they want, and see what they want, and eat what they want, wear what they want. So why not me? Why can't I do this, touch this, and so on? But what here the pasuk is saying is that the Kohen had this to preserve his level of honor. It was because of his level that was being guarded. And that's a very important thing for every Jew, especially when Matan Torah is coming, to remember that it's our chashivos, it's our kavod, it's our special role that's being upkept by these prohibitions that we have to be careful from. And if a person, so really, when we're mechanech ourselves, when we teach ourselves and teach our children, we want to give over this lesson. The lesson of feeling so special, feeling like a special role that we carry. And the truth is that it's not just a Kohen who's a Kohen. You can't. No one else besides Kohanim could do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. But we know that the introductory remarks that Hashem told the Jewish people before He gave us the Torah is He said, "You're going to become what? What are you going to become? Mamleches Kohanim, a kingdom of Kohanim, v'goy kadosh, and a nation that's holy." So again, here Kohanim refers to the esteem and the special role, and that's the Jewish people. So the idea is that before Hashem gave us the Torah, we have to know that it's for our benefit and how it's going to elevate us. And when we know that it's going to elevate us, then we could accept these restrictions. Okay. Now, to continue with this thought, Again, also the Ramban, the first pasuk in the parsha says the word Kohanim. Now, sometimes the Kohanim are called Kohanim. Sometimes they're called Bnei Aaron. Bnei Aaron, the sons of Aaron. So why sometimes they're called Bnei Aaron, sometimes they're called Kohanim? That's the question. So the Ramban says that when it's coming to refer to them doing the service, active service, and they're coming to do the avoda, then they're called Bnei Aaron. But when it's talking about, it's not only at a time of service, it's just who they are. It's the people, who they are, so then, and it's the esteem that's being referred to, then it calls them the Kohanim. And this, the Ramban says, it's on the first pasuk in the parsha. The Ramban says, Bekan Yazir, and this gives a theme to the whole parsha. There's many restrictions in this parsha to Kohanim, and this is a theme in it. Bekan Yazir shelo yitamu b'meis le'olam. They can never become tamei tumas meis. Afilu beis shelo yavo b'mikdash. Even if they're not coming into the mikdash, like in our generation, the Meir of Yameinu, we should be zochet to have the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. But a Kohen might say, well, I'm not going to miss doing the avoda of bringing a carbon today if I go to this funeral, so why can't I go to the funeral? There's no mikdash, there's no avoda, so let me go. So the pasuk is saying it's at any time that they cannot become tamei tumas meis, even when they're not coming to the mikdash. V'hi ma'alo lohem be'atzmam. And this is something that becomes their own elevation, their own ma'ala, their own status. Okay? And therefore the pasuk calls them Kohanim because they're the Kohanim of Hashem, they're the servants of Hashem, they represent something, so they have to carry themselves. And this is again another thing that besides all the restrictions that we do have in the Torah, we always want to remember to carry ourselves with a certain kavod and gedula because of what we represent. So it's not just about the do's and the don'ts, and it's not just about not becoming tamei, but there's about a certain dignity, a certain way we carry ourselves, and that's what it's all about. This is a women's class, I'm sure many of you have heard people speak on the topic of tzniut in such a light that it's actually a preservation of dignity and carrying oneself in a certain esteem, and that's the idea of tznius. Okay, now the Siporno actually connects this Kohanim to being the teachers of the Torah to the Jewish people, and this will bring us to the idea of Shavuos. The Kohanim, we know, and the Levium as well. The Kohanim, actually, where the Sanhedrin sat was right in the Beis HaMikdash, and it was the Kohanim who were trained in scholars. And the Seforno says here on the pasuk that also on pasuk Dal V'yitami Baal Ba'amav Le'ichalo, he says because Ki Amna Makohen Hu Baal Ba'amav Lehavin U'Lehoros, he is in charge. He is somebody who is the teacher of the Jewish people. Ki Sifsei Kohen, he quotes a pasuk, Ki Sifsei Kohen Yishmeru Das. The lips of the Kohen guard the Das. The Torah Yivakshu Mipiu. That's a pasuk. So the Torah they seek from his mouth. So B'roi La'ish Kazeh Linai B'Nesiyah. So such a person who's teaching Torah has to be carrying himself in a way of nesiyos, of upliftedness. So that people should respect him and listen to him. Because if not, they won't listen to him. And that's the idea here. So he shouldn't defile his kedusha. Okay. Now the whole idea of Sfiras HaOmer, why are we counting Sfiras HaOmer? The Sefer HaChinuch says. Now, so I'm just transitioning here, but this is a continuation of the same idea. So we spoke about the dignity of the Kohen, of being the Misharis of Hashem, the servant of Hashem, and in such gets his own intrinsic elevation that he has to guard, and also being the teacher of the Torah, which demands himself to carry himself in a certain way that will be of respect. Now, why do we count Sfiras HaOmer? Sfiras HaOmer says the Sefer HaChinuch, we're counting 49 days, and then the 50th day is Shavuos. Right? That's what the Torah tells us, that we have a Chag on the 50th day. So why are we counting Sfiras HaOmer? The Sefer HaChinuch explains like this, that the Torah was given, right, after they left Mitzrayim, 7 weeks, 7 complete weeks, and we count 7 weeks. The Torah is something that is so exciting, that was such a pinnacle of our of our exaltedness, of becoming, receiving the Torah, that we're so excited that we want to count towards it. But naturally, if we're counting towards something exciting, so you wouldn't count 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. You would count down. You'd say, there's only a half hour left till class is over, right? Or until the end of my semester, there's 3 more weeks left, and there's, to my chasana, there's a chasana, I'm getting married. How many days are there left? How many hours are there left? Right? But you're not going to count the number of days. That there's 1 more day closer, 2 more days closer. So why do we count in this fashion? So the Sefer HaChinuch says, a very interesting thing. He says 7 weeks, 7 days, 7 times 7, 49 days. That's a long time. We're going to start, and we're going to say there's 49 days left. That's like depressing. It's too long. There's too long left. But let's focus on the positive. We're 1 day closer. We're 1 day closer. He says, maybe it would have been appropriate that in the middle of the counting we could switch. We could switch and we say, now there's only 3.5 weeks left. Now there's less than 3.5 weeks left. But we don't do that. We don't switch in the middle. So therefore, what we're doing is we're counting towards, with an excitement, to show our excitement for Kabbalah Torah, that we're getting closer and closer. And the idea that I wanted to mention here is that it's really, how do we show our value for something in this world? When you go to a store, so the more you pay money to get something, so the more valuable it is, you pay more money for it. But in the spiritual realm, the price tag for something, for the chashivas, for the importance of something, for the value, is not money. What is it? It's kavod. The respect. The respect that we give to something, the more respect is the higher value, the higher status, the more important it is. That's the greater respect. When we give, the kavod equals ha'aracha. This is brought in the Sefer Ali Shur from Rav Shlomo Wolbe. So the idea is here that when we give kavod to the Torah and we show the importance to this to us, and here in this case through our excitement, through building it up to it and preparing for it, and speaking about that it's coming, so then that kavod is really showing how important the Torah is to us, and when that is how we could merit to receive the Torah. That's actually the preparation. The preparation is the counting itself, because the counting itself is showing our kavod and our chashivas, that we are looking forward and longing to this time. It's interesting, when we're longing for Mashiach, but that's very long. It has been long, and we hope it's going to come very soon. But we can't count down the days. We can't count down the days because we don't know when it is. And that was something that Hashem covered over from Yaakov Avinu and didn't allow him to give over the secret. But here we do know when it's coming. The day of Shavuos is coming, and it's the day of Matan Torah, and something that's exciting and special. Now, that's when we got our own elevation, the time when the Torah was given to us. We became those Mamlechas Kohanim, B'Goy Kadosh, spoke about in this week's parsha. Now, when the Jewish people came to get the Torah, it says, Vayikra Sham Yisrael, neged ahar. And Vayichan doesn't say Vayachanu. So Vayachanu is plural, and Vayichan is Lashon Yachid. They can't. So why? It's very famous. Could be, you know this. Ish echad v'leiv echad. Vayichan. That was like one person that all camped together, right? And that was a prerequisite to accepting the Torah. They needed, in order to accept the Torah, Vayichan Sham, right there, when they got there, they accepted the Torah. And this is a time when we want to work on that, of being able to respect others, respect everyone as being part of this Mamlechet Kohanim V'Gai Kadosh, and be those who accepted the Torah, and were unified in this mission. Now there's a very beautiful idea that is in this week's Parashas Emor, from the Sefer Meshech Chochma of Meir Simcha Tvinsk. Lived in the beginning of the 1900s. So he said the following. He himself was a Kohen, actually, and he was a Rav of Tvinsk. He wrote a sefer called Or Sameach, and a sefer Meshech Chochma. Many have heard of these one. Now the pasuk says, when it's talking about counting Sfiras HaOmer, so it talks about counting Mimacharas HaShabbos, from the day after Shabbos. Now what that means is from the day after the first day of Yom Tov, which is observed with certain restrictions like Shabbos, and every Yom Tov is called Shabbos. But the question is, why specifically does it call Pesach individually Shabbos more than other holidays? Mimacharas HaShabbos, it calls Pesach Shabbos. And then it speaks about counting Sfiras Omer from the day after Shabbos. Historically, this was significant, because those who did not believe in Torah Shebaal Peh, those who did not believe in the oral Torah, the Sadducees, what they said is that it really means from the day after Shabbos, the first Shabbos in Pesach, and they wouldn't have Shavuos on the day that we have it, counting 49 days starting from the second night of Pesach, which follows the first night. They wouldn't do that. What they would do is they would count from the day after Shabbos. But what the sages teach us from Torah Shebaal Peh, from accepting the explanation of the Torah in the oral law, and that is that it means the day after the first day of Pesach. And this is a beautiful thought which connects to our idea of accepting the Torah with unity. And that is that he says like this: the true unity of the Jewish people, the highest level of unity, comes through accepting the Torah. And that's why we have to be unified in that. There are many countries and groups, and different things make up a group. A group could be because people come from the same background. It could be because they are in the same place. It could be because they have the same beliefs. They all have a certain goal in mind that they are all working towards. Okay, 3 different types of unities. They have the same background, they have the same location, or they have the same goal. They're working towards a certain goal, and they're working together. They believe, you have Republicans, Democrats, so on, right? So what unites them is their ideal system. Hopefully, their ideas. The idea unites them. But the Torah is much more than that. And this is why the Torah brings the Jewish people to a much higher level of unity than any other people. The reason is because the Torah, when Hashem gave us the Torah, He didn't just say, okay, now here's the laws, you all have to keep the laws. He said to us, now I'm taking the Torah from Shemayim, so to speak, and I'm bringing it down here onto Har Sinai, down to you, and now you are in charge. If there's a question of what the ruling is, it's up to you. You get together and you follow your own minds in understanding the Torah, and you go after the majority, and you follow the sages who teach you the Torah and who accept it, and so on. And that's how you interpret it. And Moshe Rabbeinu did something very interesting when it was time for Matan Torah. He interpreted the verse as meaning that instead of the Torah being given after only he actually added one day on his own. That's what the sages teach us. It means Hashem said that you should get ready to accept the Torah, and he said 2 days, but Moshe said really it means not starting today, because today already started. You have to have a full day, so he added on a day. So what that means is that Hashem listened to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he gave the Torah a day later. And the day that we start Shavuos on Vav Sivan is actually not the day that the Torah was given. It's actually given on the second day of Shavuos. But so this is something that the commentaries struggle with. Well, why do we have Shavuos on that day? And the reason, this is the Maharsha says, I believe it's the Maharsha, is a commentator on the Gemara. He says that the day that Hashem, we see the power that the Jewish people got the Torah was on this day, that Moshe added on a day. Because that showed that we became, so to speak, in charge of the Torah. It wasn't anymore up by the Malachim, it wasn't up in Shemayim. Now we became the ones who were the ultimately had the power of the Torah. And the power of the Torah is the power that runs the entire world. And everything that happens in the world, in history, revolves around the Jewish people. How the Gentiles treat the Jewish people at that era, and how the Jewish people deserve that Hashem should reveal himself to them and give blessings upon them. So when we got the Torah, we became, so to speak, running the world. And this, the Nefesh HaChaim speaks about this, that's the idea of Tzelem Elokim. But the idea is that Hashem says, I'm going to be like a shadow to you. When you move your hand, I move. You smile and bring happiness in this world and kindness, I bring kindness to this world. And really Hashem mirrors the way mankind acts. And that's the special unity that the Jewish people have, because the whole world, we're unified in our mission of together we can bring this world to where it's supposed to get. And that came through Shavuos. Now, how does that answer the question of why Pesach is called Shabbos? And this is a very interesting idea. This is from the Meshech. There are 3 differences between Shabbos and Yom Tov that he enumerates. On Shabbos, we cannot cook. On Yom Tov, we can cook. On Shabbos, if you don't have an Eruv, you're not allowed to carry in a public domain 4 amos, or from private domain to a public domain, you can't transfer. But on Yom Tov, you could. You can carry. And on Shabbos, there's something called the Tchum of 2,000 cubits outside of the city. You can't go too far of a distance. There's something called an Eruv Tchumen that you could make in order to be able to expand your Tchum. And that's what the Kol is learning about Eruvin now. One of the ideas is Eruv Tchumen. But anyway, these 3 things you have on Yom Tov, you're allowed to do these. You go as far as you want, you can carry, and you can cook, you can prepare food, and on Shabbos you can't. So there's a depth to this. And the depth is that on Shabbos, there's a time when it's a day when we spend a spirituality with Hashem, with our families, and in prayer, and we have our meal. But Yom Tov is a day, historically, the Jewish people would be Ola Regel. They would all go to Yerushalayim. It was a day of community gathering, and it was a chag, it was a circle, it was a time of ingathering of the Jewish people. Now imagine if you had a time when it's a day for the community to unite, and it's a holiday, that's the identity of the holiday, but you can't cook, so maybe more guests will come, and you're not going to have enough food. You can't go from one place to another, bring your food to a different place. Imagine, it would be make the Korban Pesach very difficult to celebrate. You couldn't transfer it from one place, couldn't take it from where you cooked it and bring it to where you need to eat it. And that's the idea of carrying and traveling. All of this that we have on Yom Tov is to facilitate, says the Meshech Chochmah, is to facilitate this day of gathering. Whereas on Shabbos, the Shabbos is a different type of unity of the Jewish people. The unity of the Jewish people on Shabbos is essentially that we all serve one Hashem. We all have this gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us Shabbos, and He made us the ones who are His people, and we can have this emunah. He created the world. He took us out of Mitzrayim, but we don't have this time of being all the regel every Shabbos. We don't have that. So the Shabbos, in every community and families, could be that they don't go to the big city for Shabbos, right? But they're all all the Jews are unified, like different different leaves on a tree. How are they all unified? Because they're all connected. They all get their source of life from the roots of the tree, and we all get our source from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that's our unity. Each leaf is in a different place, but they're all unified through that. But on Yom Tov, then it's a different type of unity. The unity is a unity of when we come together and we practically unite, right? Not just in an ideal, So on Pesach, the Jewish people brought a carbon Pesach, right? They brought sacrifice, but they didn't have a Beis HaMikdash yet, and they didn't all gather in one place. No, the carbon Pesach was each family in their own house, and they couldn't bring it out of that house. They had a family that got together, but look, if they needed, it was too big of a group, they had to make a different carbon Pesach and a different group, right? The groups couldn't be too big, and what it was is that each family, they stayed in their home and they had the carbon Pesach, but they all believed, they all expressed their belief in Hashem through the bringing carbon Pesach, and that was the idea of Shabbos. But 49 days later, the Jewish people went and they got to Mountain Torah, and there they camped. Vayikra Sham Yisrael Neged Har. They camped, and they were unified, and they were all circled around the mountain, and that was the first holiday that they came to this unity through accepting the Torah, and that's our preparation to get to Mountain Torah is this idea of unifying the Jewish people and unifying to accept the Torah, meaning the excitement and the honor, the chashivos, the importance that we attribute to the Torah. That's what we're looking forward to. That's our preparation. That itself, the counting itself, is the preparation, and every day we're counting and we're also thinking about the unifying.